There are three Sputniks of our generation. Certainly the US technological lead, and I'll talk about that. We have an energy security issue. We import 60% of our petroleum from areas that may not always like us. And we have the other challenge, which is greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. Everything is in the right direction, except for the population. And the question is, where do we have the soft spot? Where can we actually make a difference? And certainly carbon per joule is something that we could make a difference. We're essentially sitting on a Titanic. And we're going into, and for a long time people said, oh, there is no iceberg. And then people said, okay, let's just reshuffle the deck chairs. And what we want to do is to turn the whole ship around. And that is a very difficult task, and I'm going to come to what approaches do we have to take the ship, and hopefully we will get a grazing angle, impact, and then move on. But as far as now is concerned, we're looking at heading it right on to that iceberg. This is the population density of the world. This is the reflection of the energy consumption in the world. These are stitched satellite pictures of the lighting pattern that you see from space. And when you overlay, you see some mismatches. You see some places where there are not much population and it's really bright. And you also see places where there's a lot of population in Africa, in India, China, etc., where the people have not yet turned on the lights. And if they do turn on the lights the way we have, we are in trouble. So the question is, how do we enable them to turn on the right lights? We do want them to turn on the lights, but the right kind. And how do we keep our standard of living and turn out the lights of the past? And that is metaphorically is the challenge of our lifetime, of several generations. Take that 100 years and squeeze that into 20 years. Imagine all of that happening in a span of the next 20 years, by 2030. That is the scale of things that we need. That's a pace of things that we need. And our goal is to see if we can identify and support today's and tomorrow's Hubbard, Bosch, Borlaug, Bardeen, Shockley, Salk, Gates, and Jobs, etc., of the energy sector. And it is not just ARPA-E. This is broader. This is for our country, for the world. This is the spaghetti chart of the energy wiring diagram for the United States. We need to decarbonize this. We need to amplify nuclear and all the renewables out here. We need to reduce our consumption. And we need a smart infrastructure to talk between both of them. And that's it. Right? That's easier said than done, of course. 3,700 concept papers came in out of this open call. And it actually broke down the DOE computer system. It was not used to this kind of, supply. And we came up with a better one. ARPA-E actually came up with a better software, which is now being used in the rest of DOE. And I should say that out of the 3,700, about 20% or 25% did not satisfy the first or second laws of thermodynamics. Right? But that's okay. It's okay. This was the first round. Let's just people, it's okay to get them excited. So the real number is about 2,000, 2,500. And that's still a large number of relevant. Out of that, about 300 or so were chosen for a full proposal, and 340 came in. And out of that, only 37 were selected. Now, one would ask that, and one would say that's a pretty small number. The average funding level was $4 million. And I'm so happy, this is again, not my decision, was done before, but I'm so happy they did not break it up into 100K chunks and give it to 1,500 people. That would have been not a good idea. They gave enough money to make a substantial difference in something that they do. This is risk-taking. Just to give you a few ideas, examples of what we funded, this is a startup company called Agribita in the area of biofuels. So as some of you know, the biggest challenge in biofuels is how to break down the cellulose or lignin into smaller sugar molecules that could be then used by bugs and other things to make, whether it's ethanol, butanol, or gasoline directly. And that, of course, cows do that in their guts. Termites do that in their guts. There's a whole cocktail of enzymes that are produced. And if you want to do it at scale, that enzyme production is expensive. What these people have done is what I call in layman's language. I have to explain this to Congress and many other parts. We are non-technical people. I say putting the cow inside the plant. So these are taking the cocktail of genes and putting it in the plant and let the plant produce these enzymes, but block the enzymes till it grows, and then trigger the enzymes later on. These are called inteins in these enzymes. And so then activate the enzymes when you want it to, and then let the plant chew itself from inside. So it's a novel idea, and it's high risk. We don't know whether it's going to work. But if it works, this could be potentially game-changing for all kinds of plants, not just switchgrass, but all other whole palette of plants. If we are to be successful, if we are to hit the home run and create the equivalent of the ARPA net in energy sector, it'll take about 20 plus years, 10 plus years, 20 plus years for it to make a huge impact. So we know what it looks like 20 years from now. It'll change the projection of IPCC. It will shift the McKinsey curves. It'll create jobs. The market share will be huge. All kinds of good things. And we know what we're doing now. We're trying to recruit the best people. We have 3,700 concept papers. We have a new organizational structure. We can talk about now. The question is, what is the connection between the two? And the 3 to 5 year metrics are probably the most important ones, because they provide the trajectory towards those home runs. If we have invested in a technology, has there been a follow-on investment post the ARPA-E award? If there has been, especially from the private sector, that's a good sign. Increase in value of a company that we invested in. How many companies have we created that if we are taking from science and we are now developing a technology that is useful to someone, maybe someone will create a company. How many have we created? If you have invested in a space that no one has ever invested before, and because of our investment in a startup company, there are 5 other startup companies that got invested in. That's good. That's competition for our own investment. That's a good sign.
In the news today, we're hearing about the Gates Foundation's new building they're putting in downtown Seattle, and they're spending about $500 million on it. In context, spending $4 million each on 34 projects seems completely small potatoes. Is the ARPA investment limited by DOE money, by Congress? But we're giving $10 billion out to banks. Right. And you're able to come up with $120 million for something so important. It seems out of scale.
Well, thank you for saying that. Please go to Congress and say that. No, but I think here's the thing. Yeah, this needs to be scaled. I think, as I said, we are not short of good ideas. But the budget is really an issue of the president, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. And what I can say is that regardless of what the budget is, we will make the best use of the money and see, the biggest difference we can make with whatever we have.